Shalom, family. Good to see everyone here. Hope you're doing well. Well, there's an announcement. Look like the war is back on, y'all. The ceasefire is over. And Iran hit US ally UAE. They said it is an inferno over there right now. They hit their oil refinery, and they said it is burning like crazy over there in the UAE, and there are also rumors of them hitting Dubai as well. So they are saying, the US and Israel may be going back on the attack within the next 24 hours. So the US just came forward and said they blew up 6 Iranian ships. And, it's still a lot of tension out there in the Strait of Hormuz. And, this situation is not going to get better, y'all. We're at the end. So there is nothing that's going to turn this conflict around. Them going back to war is inevitable, no matter how much, Donald Trump is still making all his threats. So, Iran is like, well, hey, it's on. It's on. But I didn't realize they took out 6 of their ships, but they did. The US did. So much for ceasefire, right? Donald Trump has been so contradictory through the ceasefire. It's not even funny. So I'm not surprised. But yes, it looks like we're going to be looking at the war on live stream real shortly again. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
A major attack on Iran, and the United States has gathered forces in the Emirates, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, and then there's Jordan. The Israeli regime is preparing. So we are expecting an imminent assault. The Iranians are, from my understanding, currently carrying out limited strikes on the Emirates to make it more difficult for this assault to take place. The Emirates is probably doing the most against Iran, as it has been doing for many years. The Iranians have really forgiven these countries too many times. Since the ceasefire, we see a huge buildup of U.S. assets in these countries, including a lot of weapon systems for a ground invasion, which, as I said, Iran believes to be. So we are where we are. Iran has also been preparing. And I think that if a war begins, Ryan, I think you're going to see a global economic depression is almost assured.
Early this morning, as the sun rose over the roiling, blood-warm waters of the Persian Gulf, the world was forced to witness yet another catastrophic failure in what can only be described as Donald Trump's longest and most humiliating military farce. What we are seeing unfold is not an operation. It is a public catastrophic meltdown.
Assumedly Iranian missiles, but saying 2 missiles hit U.S. warship near Yask Island after it ignored Iran warnings.
Iranian media now claims a U.S. warship has been struck by missiles in the Strait of Hormuz.
Iranian state-linked media claimed the unthinkable, missiles slamming into a U.S. Navy vessel near the port of Jask.
Just hours after the former president surrounded by the ghosts of his own failed maximum pressure campaign, announced this monstrously named Project Freedom to escort cargo ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran called his bluff with the kind of decisiveness that Washington has proven utterly incapable of mustering. According to multiple reports coming out of the region, Iranian naval forces engaged the USS Canberra, the first American vessel that attempted to muscle its way into the strait this morning, firing 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles as a direct, unambiguous warning. While CENTCOM is frantically spinning a web of denial, Iranian state media, along with local sources near the port of Jask, confirmed the warship was struck by at least 2 missiles and forced to turn back in blazing humiliation, retreating from the very waters Trump swore he would police. And as if that singular slap to the empire's face wasn't poetic enough, the only oil tanker that has actually managed to transit the strait since Trump's little freedom tantrum began this morning was, and we are not joking here, carrying Iranian oil. It appears the only thing the U.S. Navy has successfully escorted so far is a massive serving of Iranian petroleum, right under the nose of this so-called blockade. Compounding the chaos, the United Arab Emirates has issued a frantic, panicked condemnation after Iranian drone operators, with surgical, ice-cold precision, targeted an ADNOC-affiliated oil tanker, the MV Baraka, striking it squarely with 2 drones at the anchorage zone. The vessel was decimated, not as a vessel of war, but as a symbol of the utter impotence of the Gulf monarchies who rely on American protection that never actually arrives. The UAE's angry statement, calling it an Iranian terrorist attack, reveals nothing but the desperation of a client regime realizing that its daddy in Washington cannot even protect a ship in a parking lot, let alone on the high seas. No injuries were recorded, and the tanker was not even loaded, which tells you everything you need to know. This was Tehran sending an engraved message that it can and will hit whatever it wants, wherever it wants, and there is nothing Trump can do about it, except run to Fox News and cry about the polls. As global markets immediately began to hemorrhage on the back of this escalating inferno, with Brent crude oil catapulting past $113 a barrel and WTI surging above 105, it becomes painfully clear that this is not just a military skirmish, but a comprehensive demolition of American credibility. We are witnessing a historic reordering of power. And if you are as outraged by the warmongering American government as we are, you need to hit that like button and smash subscribe to support honest, uncensored journalism. Look, the algorithm tries to silence voices that tell the truth about the occupation and its crumbling empire. So drop a comment right now, even if it's a single dot, or better yet, tell us exactly what you think about Trump's catastrophic Project Freedom, and share this video to overpower that suppression. We are going to keep bringing you the raw truth that CNN and Fox refuse to report, but we can only do that with your direct support. So subscribe now and let's drag this monstrosity of American foreign policy into the cold, harsh light of day where it belongs. As the dust settles over those burning anchorage zones and the frantic refueling tracks of U.S. Air Force tankers fill the sky above the Gulf of Oman, we are getting word of something even more chilling, something that suggests the White House knows it is walking directly into a trap that will make the fall of Saigon look like a minor traffic violation. The military dynamics we are currently tracking paint a picture of absolute American paralysis masked by frantic, desperate posturing. Following Trump's announcement, U.S. Central Command, in a move that reeks of panic rather than strategy, immediately changed the rules of engagement for American forces in the region. This wasn't a tactical adjustment. It was a bureaucratic admission of terror. The new directive authorizes U.S. commanders to strike what they call immediate threats to ships crossing the strait, specifically targeting Iranian fast boats or Iranian missile positions. On paper, this
America just bombed Iran. We dropped bunker busters on Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. So America has attacked Iran. The person who did that is Donald J. Trump, an utter fraud. He ran as anti-war and then started a war. So I'm going to do a very long live on this right now with all the details of how Iran might retaliate, and they will retaliate. Nobody gets attacked and doesn't counterattack. Our troops are sitting ducks. They're sitting there waiting to get killed, so we get dragged further into the war, and then Israel can say, ha, we got you all the way into this war, and now you got to fight it for us. So that's what Donald Trump did. What a fraud. So we have attacked Iran. Iran will probably counterattack against our troops who do not have Iron Dome, unlike Israel. So Young Turks on YouTube, I'm going to tell you all the details of how this is a disaster and Donald Trump has betrayed us. And what is MAGA going to do? Are you guys going to step up and be anti-war, or were you frauds?
Iran has just resumed the conflict by launching drones and missiles into the United Arab Emirates. This attack just happened. It's not even on traditional news media yet. It's only being reported on X and other social media sites. But even the UAE embassy has released these alerts. And so far, it looks like either a third or fourth wave of Iranian drone and missile attacks have been handled. If you're curious as to why all of a sudden Iran decided to attack the UAE, it could be due to the fact that the United States said just yesterday they were going to start using the Navy to escort tankers and other vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. One of the rules of engagement that the United States just changed was that they could take out threats around the Strait of Hormuz. Just a few hours, the United States said as a result of this operation that 2 US flagged ships were actually allowed to pass the strait safely. Around the same time, it's reported that a UAE vessel was also off the port and is somehow on fire. And I'm wondering what the cause of that was. Was it an Iranian attack? Was this ship trying to traverse the Strait of Hormuz, and this is why Iran is attacking? Or are they just getting attacked because the UAE has been siding tremendously with the United States, and Iran is trying to make an example of this country? I'm not 100% sure. I'm just spitballing here because the information is just coming out. So far, no other Persian Gulf countries have been attacked. It looks like the United Arab Emirates is the sole victim here. And of course, the attack that Iran launched against the UAE hit one of their oil processing sites. It was the Fujairah facility. And of course, as a result of this attack, we have seen the paper prices of oil spike up. What surprised me is that the price of oil has only spiked up between 2 to 4.5%. And I'm wondering if it's just because the resumption of hostilities is fairly recent, or this was all priced in, which is why we didn't see the price of oil really calm down during this ceasefire, which has been abruptly violated. Optic-wise, even though the United States did start this conflict in the first place, Iran has been the one to restart it. So let's pay attention and see how the dynamics are going to change, at least politically, diplomatically. And just like I said in my post yesterday, Iran has given the United States the perfect excuse to start bombing them again and maybe tightening the blockade. I don't know what Iran thought they would gain by attacking the UAE, but I don't think it's going to play out very well for them. Thanks for watching.
The Iran war is back on. 3 different ships have been struck in the past several hours by Iranian probably cruise missiles. You also have the main export terminal, the only one that's really operating in the United Arab Emirates, which has also been hit. And all of this is Iranian strikes. They're going to act preemptively, and it looks like that's what they're doing. To the extent you were told that somehow the Trump administration is going to put Navy ships into the Strait of Hormuz, that there are ships going to be coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, you were misled. Our government is not a reliable source of information. You need to understand that. We saw that yesterday with this debacle in messaging and communications from Trump when he posts this thing on social media. Then it's immediately walked back by the White House. And then U.S. Central Command posts something that's even different. It was like 3 different communications on key issues within the span of a few minutes. So what is going to happen as far as, is it going to be a full scope war? Like there's going to be targets all over Iran getting hit? Unclear at this point in time, but things are exploding. Targets are on fire. And that's where we're at. Be here as it develops.
We have some very serious news. This is what Tehran looks like tonight. Absolutely apocalyptic scenes out of Tehran. Why does it look like this? Well, the United States and Israel over the past many hours have been bombing really oil refineries across Iran, and northern Iran, along with Tehran. Now, Tehran is a city with millions and millions of people. And there are many questions tonight why the United States and Israel are going after the oil depots across Iran, especially as oil prices surge across the world and gas prices as a result surge in the United States of America. The images and videos we're seeing coming out of Tehran and northern Iran, where there are videos of oil spillage on the roads that are literally on fire now. These images are very horrific, to say the least. And I mean, they're only about to get worse because the bombing of Iran is only going to continue. I'll have more updates for you very soon. As always, spread the word and follow along, stay up to date on all the news you need to know about.
We have breaking news right now out of the Middle East. It's still spotted, it's still unclear, but there are reports coming in, emerging literally within the last few minutes, that UAE has been attacked again by Iran. And you have here, you see Al Jazeera is reporting the UAE is reporting missile and drone strikes incoming from Iran. Some outlets like War Monitor on X has been tracking these from their initial launch and said there have been apparently several waves. As Fujairah is not a random target, what was hit. It is UAE's primary oil export terminal on the Gulf of Oman, the only major UAE port that bypasses the Strait of Hormuz entirely. It handles millions of barrels of oil that the world has been rerouting specifically to avoid the closed strait. Iran just hit the bypass route. So we'll see what kind of impact that has on the global price of oil. And let me see if I can show you one other thing here real quick, because it's kind of important on where that target is. And let me bring this up for you if I can. Gary's going to continue watching the headlines, and if we have any details any more than what we've seen already, we'll bring them in. But let me show you the target where it's been hit. This is the past the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, this right here is the strait, and I'm not getting my tags up for some reason. But the Fujairah is on this coast down here. And a lot of the oil has been coming out because the strait has been blocked up through here. So only vessels going out through this path right here, approved by the Iranian side, have been able to get out. But UAE was able to get out a significant amount of oil on these from the ports over on this side. Well, if Iran hits that, and by the way, let me show you. This is a map here. This is just released in the last few days by the Iranian side. This is their new formal blockade. I actually think it was just this morning. Those two yellow lines say this is what is blocked. And if you can kind of look up in there, you see kind of a blue line above the word Strait of Hormuz. Those are some of the paths that the Iranian side say you can go through these areas that we have cleared.
So it's May 4th, 2026, and tensions are exploding across the Middle East, and full-blown war could very well break out again. Here's the latest. Trump announced so-called Project Freedom over the weekend, claiming that the U.S. Navy would be escorting trapped ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran saw this as direct provocation, and they responded accordingly. Iran struck the port of Fujairah in the UAE. That's the UAE's only oil export route that bypasses the strait, and it is currently on fire. This was a deliberate strategic hit by Iran. Iran also struck an ADNOC tanker with 2 drones and hit a South Korean vessel in the engine room. The UAE is now intercepting Iranian cruise missiles, and residents are receiving shelter-in-place alerts for the first time since the ceasefire. The UAE says that they will strike back in response to Iran's attacks. A residential building in northern Oman was targeted in an Iranian attack, wounding 2 people. And we have CENTCOM here in the United States confirming that Iran fired on U.S. warships. They're claiming that the U.S. destroyed Iranian small boats in response. But earlier this morning, the White House was denying that any of this was happening. Iran is denying that any of their boats were destroyed. CENTCOM also claimed that 2 U.S. ships made it through the strait, though there is no evidence of that based on any data. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent went on Fox News, and he claimed that the U.S. has, quote, absolute control over the Strait of Hormuz. The strait is on fire. Ships are not moving. That is not what absolute control looks like. Bessent is now begging China to help the U.S. in the strait. And meanwhile, Trump made a post begging South Korea to join in on the effort. CNN is now reporting that the U.S. and Israeli strikes on targets inside Iran could resume within the next 24 hours. This whole ceasefire just may be over. We'll have to see. An Iran military spokesperson released a statement writing, quote, "Tonight, perhaps a new chapter of power will unfold, one the adversaries have never witnessed before." And while everything is falling apart, Trump is telling reporters that his blockade is, quote, the greatest military maneuver in history. This is a fast-moving situation, and we're going to keep following it every step of the way. For deeper coverage and analysis, listen to the Midas Touch podcast, anywhere you find podcasts.
Dangerous developments in the Middle East. The ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran is over as the Iranian and U.S. forces trade shots in the Strait of Hormuz. The next 24 hours are going to be critical because it is being reported that the United States is likely to resume striking Iranian targets within the next 24 hours, so we need to pay attention. The United States military is claiming it destroyed 6 small Iranian boats, and Iran has launched, quote, multiple cruise missiles and drones and small boats at U.S. Navy ships and commercial ships that are being, quote, protected by our Navy. Trump announced last night that U.S. naval forces would be there on a humanitarian mission to help escort boats through the Strait of Hormuz and avoid mines. But this was never a humanitarian mission at all. It was designed to inflame the Iranian authorities and military, and it has done just that. It has given the United States the excuse to resume striking Iranian targets. It does appear that Iran made the first move here, firing upon boats. There are multiple boats on fire right now, and the United Arab Emirates is condemning their actions. Now, personally, like I said, I believe this mission was doomed to fail and designed to fail for this reason, to give the United States an excuse to begin resuming striking Iranian targets. What this holds for the next 24, 36 hours, I cannot tell you. But it is likely we are going to see substantial strikes either by the United States or Israel begin to pick up within the coming hours.
Iran has struck the UAE. A drone hit an oil facility in Fujairah. Fires were reported. Missiles fell near the Jebel Ali port in Dubai. 3 Indian nationals were injured. The UAE says it holds Iran fully responsible. Meanwhile, after Iranian Navy firing warning shots towards US destroyers, now the US has sunk 6 Iranian fast boats in the Strait of Hormuz. And Trump is on Fox News threatening Iran will be, in his words, blown off the face of the earth if it touches American ships. Now, let me give you the context, because this didn't start today. In 2020, the UAE signed the Abraham Accords, becoming the first Gulf Arab state to formally recognize Israel. It was brokered by the US. The stated goal was peace. The real goal was a united front against Iran. When the US and Israel launched the war on Iran in February 2026, the UAE quietly let Israel deploy Iron Dome missile batteries operated by Israeli soldiers on Emirati soil. They shared live intelligence. They attended war meetings together in Tel Aviv. Abu Dhabi publicly denied all of it. Then, on May 3rd, Iran confirmed UAE fighter jets had been bombing Iranian territory. The denial was over. Less than 24 hours later, Iran struck back. Fujairah's oil zone on fire. Jebel Ali port struck. 2 Emirati vessels and a South Korean cargo ship hit while trying to breach Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Since the war began, the UAE has intercepted over 498 ballistic missiles and 2,141 drones. Nearly 65% of Iran's total munitions in this campaign have been aimed at one country, the UAE, not a military base in the desert, the Burj Al Arab, Jebel Ali, Dubai Airport. Iran is targeting the symbols. Now, here's the brutal reality. The UAE built everything, its economy, its image, its identity, on 3 things: security, stability, investor confidence. It now has Iranian missiles 140 kilometers from Dubai. It's quit the OPEC without telling Saudi Arabia. It's diplomatically isolated from Qatar, Kuwait, and its Gulf neighbors. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, and the pipeline to Fujairah, the UAE's workaround, can only carry 40 to 50% of normal export volumes. The UAE bet everything on the US-Israel alliance winning this war fast. That hasn't happened. And now Abu Dhabi is paying the price of a war it quietly chose, but publicly never admitted.
We have some major developments and updates regarding the Iran war, so let's get right into it. First of all, the UAE earlier today announced that they received many strikes from missiles and drones coming from Iran in the Persian Gulf coast. On top of that, President Trump announced that the United States military attacked and sunk several small boats in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, a report in Iranian state media denies that the U.S. sunk these boats. However, this attack on these boats came after Iran sent missiles towards U.S. Navy ships and other commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump has said that no damage was taken on the U.S. ships in the Strait of Hormuz. However, damage was taken on one commercial South Korean vessel. And Trump, in a new interview with radio host Hugh Hewitt, declined to say whether the ceasefire was still in effect or not. And when asked that question, his exact words were, quote, "Well, I can't tell you that." So here we are. That is all the updates I have for you guys. And it really seems that the fighting will resume once again. It seems that this ceasefire has fallen apart like many have predicted, like I said from the start. And it's not a hard prediction to make. I mean, you just look at the conditions of the peace deal. There are two different peace deals from both sides. Both the United States and Iran cannot agree to it. Israel is still bombing Lebanon. I mean, we are in a mess right now. That's going to be hard to get out of, if it's even possible to get out of at this point. And let's pray for our troops. Let's pray for President Trump that he can come back to reality and we can actually pull us out of this conflict without even more damage than has already been done. But it's safe to say that Iran is not coming to the table because we took the fight to them and they are not backing down. And really, why would they?
I think the US just started World War III tonight. If you haven't heard, the US just bombed Iran's nuclear sites. Trump just tweeted about it on Truth Social, talking about the successful strike, thanking the great American warriors, and then in all caps says, "Now is the time for peace." How ironic. If you don't know, some of Iran's allies include Russia and China, and Kim Jong-un of North Korea has recently offered to be an ally of Iran's as well. Who knows how this is going to play out or escalate, but Iran has also said that they will retaliate against the US if they get involved. I'm not an expert on these things. I'm just sharing a little bit about what I know. So if you know more, please enlighten us in the comments. I think the US just started World War III tonight. If you haven't heard, the US just bombed Iran's nuclear sites. Trump just tweeted about it on Truth Social, talking about the successful strike.
War is back on. We tried to break the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. That failed utterly. Iran says they hit one of our ships. Certainly ships have been hit. We're denying it, but we're a bunch of liars. Our government is. Almost everything that Trump has said about this war has turned out to be a lie. And so he says, oh, no, don't worry. We didn't get hit. We very likely did. Then Iran hit UAE's oil storage facilities. And so now the war is back to expanding. If you don't know, I did a longer video on YouTube on the Young Turks channel over the weekend explaining how Iran had a wonderful peace offer. Definitely should have taken it. They could never get nuclear weapons if we took that offer. I think that's why the Israelis panicked and made Trump attack immediately, restart the war immediately, because we might have accidentally gotten to peace, and that's the very last thing Israel wants. Tonight on the Young Turks on YouTube at 6 o'clock Eastern, we'll have all the details of this disastrous war.
Y'all, you know what? I think that this war is going to be long. I don't think it's going to be over shortly. I think it's going to be a long one. And I don't know, how do America survive, and you're low on munition? Your soldiers are starving. You haven't even resolved that issue. And y'all, it's not enough troops over there to do a ground war. You don't have enough. And you're going to send 50,000 troops in, and Iran got a 1 million man army. They're going to be gone as soon as they hit the soil over there. So, no matter how you look at it, it is a bad situation for America. It's bad. And I don't know if any of you heard, but Friday the stock market crashed again. You know, and with all this stuff, the bombing kicking up again, the gas prices are going to go through the roof over these next few days. It's going to get real bad out here. And people are already struggling to keep up with these gas prices, but they're going to be outdone because of the activity that's going on over there now. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget to pick up your hair products. And I got to put out all of my info because my anniversary date is not that far away. And I got so many Botana bottles everywhere up in here. I made a lot. So hopefully I won't sell out. I'll still have plenty to sell in the coming days. So that's going to be May 8th, and I'll put all the info out for that. So this new product is part of my 2nd-year anniversary on Etsy, and you'll be able to get it at a pretty decent discount, you know. So, y'all have a wonderful night, and I will see you again tomorrow. Shalom, family.